Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Evil Geniuses Bleed Blue podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about just about everything Evil Geniuses, although there is a massive elephant in the room this episode, of course. If you won't be surprised to hear, not good news. It's Evil Geniuses. When is it ever good news? Um, but yeah, so obviously the elephant in the room is going to be the Valorant Champions roster from 2023, the team that just won Champions just a few weeks ago. We're obviously going to be talking about that as the big headline for this episode. But there will be a segment at the end. I'm going to try to see if I can get Current to get on. And we're going to try to talk. Hopefully, I can get him on, and we can talk about EPL groups. But if he's not able to get on, I'll probably just talk about them myself for a little bit. There's also a little bit of a bombshell to drop for the CSGO section. So if I go through this first Valorant section and you want to hear a little bit more information about how EG is a very scummy org and things being dug up from their past, there will be a little bit of a bombshell dropped in the CSGO section at the very start. So if you want to stay tuned for that, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, I know obviously what everyone wants to hear, what everyone wants to discuss is obviously what's happened with the Valorant roster. So that is obviously the main headline. And so yeah, without further ado, I guess let's just kind of jump right into it. So VCT Champions roster, let's see, is available. We'll go with that because they're not technically dropped, which is what I'm going to talk about. Um, because I think it's an important distinction to make. Um, so we'll just go with is available. I would have put dropped. It's easier to put that in the topic slide, but it's not entirely accurate. So let's kind of just break this down a little bit and just kind of start from the beginning, right? So obviously EG comprised of Boostio, Jogamo, Demon One, Ethan, and Calm. Won Champions 2023. Very jubilant. Things were going great. Everyone was excited, super happy that EG won. It came on the podcast. I was super elated about it. It's probably one of the most positive podcast episodes I've had since the start, and it has unfortunately, surprisingly, come to a little bit of a shocking halt as EG has decided to let the players. It was reported by Purist, and basically he reported that the EG players are now available to explore their options. And this is a shock, obviously, as they literally just won champions, and EG was parading this team around as if, wow, this is finally, look, guys, we were right the whole time. Look at what we were doing in other esports. It doesn't even matter because look at this team and look how great we are. Nicole on her walking out of the org is talking about how this is like her crowning achievement or whatever. And then they obviously clearly didn't care that much about them because they decided to essentially drop them uh, in a way, um, or basically just say fuck you. So I think there's been let's first start off with how we found out about the situation. So Twitter was kind of starting to go crazy, or X was kind of going nuts because of, there were a lot of rumors going on. People had spreadsheets that they were releasing. People are still having tier lists that are being created about like, who's making good roster moves, who's making bad roster moves, which roster moves are just confusing. And I think warning signs for me started to appear um, when the tier lists were coming out. And after EG had decided to get rid of Zix as the assistant coach, supposedly because he wanted to, Andy Barton, who is no longer with EG, he replied to me and said, Zix wanted to go be a head coach, which is understandable. Don't know why they didn't mention that in the release of Zix. They did on the main post. They didn't say anything like that, so that's pretty weird. Don't know why you wouldn't mention that, but regardless, that was why they got rid of Zix. And then they also decided to allow the reserve roster to explore their options, and except for Screwface. Um, but the other four players, BCJ, IC, Reformed, and Apoth, were allowed to go and explore their options. And GamerDoc made a video about it. It was an official post on EG's Twitter, but it was a little bit misrepresentative of the actual situation, which we'll get to in a second. Um, and so my concern grew when that stuff had already happened, and when the tier lists were being updated, EG was still listed as confusing. Um, and that was a red flag for me because I didn't understand how they could still be listed as confusing if they've already gotten rid of their reserve roster and their assistant coach, because in my eyes, that was the confusing part, right? Um, especially with now the new rules and regulations being that the reserve roster players don't have any minimum salary, you know, um, I thought that getting rid of your assistant coach that will help you win champs and getting rid of the 10-man roster that was a major influence on you winning champions, I thought that was going to be the confusing part. So when they were still listed in confusing, I was concerned. Um, but I really started to get concerned and realized, oh shit, it's actually happening when you start hearing players posting tweets that just sound depressing as fuck. Com's posting depressing tweets. Ethan is posting a tweet saying, like something along the lines of like, it feels great to win, but sucks it doesn't matter anymore. You have Boostio tweeting out, wow, just fucking wow. You know, you're hearing all of these tweets and you're seeing all these tweets and you're just going, what the fuck is going on right now? What is actually happening? Nobody's there's no official posts, no journalists are reporting anything, and you just see a stream of tweets from the players just clearly not happy about what's happening, and parents getting upset and whatnot, and yet there's still no news. Until Purist finally dropped that the main roster for EG was allowed to explore their options, or if they stayed with EG, they were going to receive significant pay cuts. Um, and this is where the internet went on a frenzy, and we're trying to figure out, how much was EG getting paid, what is entailed in the salary cuts, in the pay cuts. Where are these players going to go next? Oh my God, I can't believe EG is doing this. Um, and I think on the surface, right, it's very clear this is a fucking horrible decision. This decision does not make any fucking sense whatsoever. And anyone who says that it does is out of their fucking mind. Um, yeah, it's outrageous. I can't. I don't want to say I can't believe EG's treating players this way because it's not entirely a shock when you know what EG's history is, but it is shocking that people can do this and not feel any remorse and not feel any guilt in doing it, and not trying to take a bullet themselves, and trying to compromise, trying to find a better solution. But EG is seemingly unwilling to do so, and Chris Diapollonio's new start to being CEO of Evil Geniuses has started in absolute ruin. And frankly, I'm already ready for him to be gone. He's only been here for a few weeks. Now, granted, I know Nicole has an advisory capacity for a couple of weeks as Chris is joining the CEO position, but at the end of the day, we don't know how much the involvement that actually means. And frankly, Chris is the CEO, so it falls on him for this. This is his decision as far as I'm concerned. Um, and Yeah, and I think it was very clear and obvious that with Andy Barton leaving as quickly as he did, I think he's finally had enough. I had question marks about Andy Barton because um, he he basically has been the director of athletic performance or whatever, which basically just means you're the GM of sorts. You're the head of that esports division for Evil Geniuses, because Valens is that for the CSGO team. Um, Andrew Barton's been that for the League of Legends team, the Dota 2 team, I believe, for moments in time, and then also the Valorant team. And so when he was, considering he was a part of the League of Legends and the Valorant team, and both times where they get successful rosters, EG just seemingly cuts them. I listen. I don't know any information about Andrew Barton other than that stuff. So yeah, I was a little bit like, dude, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Like he must not know what he's doing, or he must be, what's going on, right? But he left. So I get the feeling that no, he was probably one of the better people at the organization. He just fucking finally had enough, and he just wanted to get the fuck out. So thank God for that. But that he's finally can get out of the EG prison as it is. Um, but yeah, it's fucking unbelievable. It's fucking unbelievable that they would drop their championship roster. It's it's a disgrace. These players have worked so incredibly hard to get to where they're at. They went from being underdogs to being champions. People doubted them every single step of the way. I would know. I've been watching this team since EG joined Valorant, and they were a tier 3 fucking roster. And Potter was a player at the time. Um, I've been watching this whole thing. I can't imagine Potter's happy with the situation, um, by any means. These guys were family. These guys were family. And so that's why the first thing I want to, before I get into the emotional side of things, I want to kind of break down the specifics of what's actually happening here. And so basically, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of journalists just kind of throwing out numbers for no reason. Don't know why anyone who is a journalist was throwing out numbers when they had not had them verified or they were not 100% sure what the numbers were, because that's bad press for the players if you're wrong. So yeah, looking at you, George Geddes, like you should not have been saying 25K when you have no definitive 100%, yes, I know it was 25K. Like, you didn't know that clearly because you were wrong. And so nobody should have been saying anything about this if they had no definitive evidence, if they didn't know themselves. They were just kind of going off the rumor mill, and that's disappointing to see. And it's not just George; there were other people as well. People saying outrageous shit, saying that the EG players they must not care about EG or they must disrespect EG. They don't think they're a good org because they clearly were disrespecting them because they didn't want to take the pay cuts. And it's like, guys, that all depends on what the pay cut is. You know what I mean? Like it depends. Like maybe they tried to work with them, but the pay cut was too much. And that's kind of the opinion I voiced, and it looks like that is the case. So essentially, Richard Lewis, as always, has to step in and clear up all the fog. A guy who's not even a main journalist in Valorant, he just has been reporting a lot on EG, um, and all the shitty things they're doing, and all the things that they're embroiled in. And he cleared up the smoke on this one. He posted an article talking about um, what's actually going on essentially, and the what he said on his stream when he was going over the article he wrote and talking about it is yeah, the players were basically offered to they were either, if they wanted to stay together, they were going to have to take a roughly 50% pay cut, a 50% pay cut, and in exchange they would get a cut. I don't know what a cut means. I don't know if that's a percentage. I don't know what that exactly means, but they would get a cut from the in-game cosmetics that are going to be released in 2024 in Valorant's in-game store, I assume, which is something that all the partner teams are going to be getting. Um, and so they were going to get a cut of that profit or that money. Now, obviously, that's not a very great deal for the players. Getting a 50% pay cut is fucking insane and ludicrous and is not acceptable under any terms, especially when you're still under contract and you've been told, hey, you're under contract till 2024, so you're supposed to be getting paid a certain amount, but we can't afford that, so you're basically going to have to take a 50% pay cut. That's incredibly shady, incredibly fucked up. And then to say that you get a cut off of the whatever they get, a cut of the in-game cosmetics for 2024, that's unguaranteed money. Nobody knows what that money is going to look like. You can predict, you can guess, but there's no way that you can know that money. So you're losing 50% of guaranteed money, money that you know should be coming to you contractually, versus money that we don't know what it's going to look like. So yeah, incredibly shady, incredibly fucked up, incredibly wrong of EG to do that. And so that was the deal. It was either take that 50% pay cut and in-game and then to cut off the in-game cosmetics, or you're more than welcome to go explore your options. And I think a lot of people kind of thought, okay, well, EG players are clearly going to get picked up by other organizations because they are they just won the world championship, so they're going to be highly sought after, even though they've been released in a terrible time where most teams already had an idea on what they wanted to do in the offseason. So releasing these EG players this late is an incredibly poor timing decision to let these players know now. It's a really shitty spot to put the players in. But people are thinking, oh, okay, well, they're going to be able to go to other teams, though. People are going to want to make deals with these players. But that's not entirely true. But before we get to that part, let's quickly discuss, okay, well, how much were EG's players getting paid? So Look, I find it kind of surprising that people were predicting the figures or they were guessing the figures, and they kept throwing some pretty high numbers out there. And I'm shocked by it because all season long everyone kept talking about how EG is a budget roster, how they kept a lot of the players from the previous year, and that um, it's clearly meant to be a budget roster. They're not paying as much as some of the other teams. So for people to be throwing out the numbers they're throwing out is kind of crazy to me. But essentially, um, according to Richard Lewis, he didn't want to give any specifics away because he doesn't want to expose any sources or who he's talking to the EG higher ups. But essentially, he said that they were getting paid on average sub 20K per month. Um, Now, look, if I'm being generous here, if I'm being generous, right? Sub 20K, let's say it's 19K, right? Let's say it's 19,000 per month. That's generous, right? They're probably not getting paid 19,000 per month, but he said sub 20K, let's be generous. So you're looking at, 19K, per month is 228,000 per year. Now, mind you, you need to remember that this is all happening. These guys are living in LA. Sorry, Discord notifications. I thought I turned that off, but apparently not. Um, you know, so they're living in LA. It is very expensive to live there, obviously. Um, and at least during the season they're living there. And yeah, so 228K sounds pretty decent, right? But they're asking for a 50% pay cut. Now you're down to 114,000, and that's me being generous. That's me being generous. Let's be honest. There's a chance these guys were being told, hey, instead of close to 200,000, you're now going to be getting paid close to 100,000. Um, I, that's not justifiable in LA, and that's not justifiable for a team that just won champions. It's just not. If anything, they should be asking for more money. They should be asking for much more money because they just won champions in a team that nobody expected to win champions. Um, they were one of the hardest working teams in Valorant. They've worked incredibly hard to get to where they're at, and you've just fucked them over and at the worst possible time. And here's the kicker. Here's what people aren't thinking about. This is what people aren't understanding about the situation. EG's players aren't just allowed to go pick whatever team they want and just be happy and leave EG. Obviously still depressed that they're not able to play with their teammates, but at least they can go to another org, get paid some money and go play for another team. It's not that simple. As we look here and we go here to this little this VCT global contract database, you can see here these are the EG players, and as you can see, there's even some reserve roster players on here like BCJ and APOF, um, who are also all these players are on contract till 2024. Now, what that means is what that means is that these players essentially, where if they want to go to a different team, that's great, and they can talk with that team, and maybe the team says, hey, we want to sign you, but at the end of the day, EG sets the buyout, and so these teams have to pay the buyout, and EG can set it to whatever they want. And so the problem is these players, even if they do find a team that they want to join, like the big rumor is Boostio to 100 Thieves, which already looks like it may not happen considering EU might be joining 100 Thieves. So who knows what's happening with that. But yeah, EG sets the buyout. And at the end of the day, if these organizations don't want to pay the buyouts, especially, as people are saying with this EG situation, they're trying to defend the EG situation by talking about the economy and the industry climate. Um, these organizations aren't going to want to pay for these buyouts. They're just not going to want to do it. And so, look, APOF and BCJ are in the same spot. Now, I would like to hope that APOF and BCJ, their buyouts aren't going to be as crazy. Probably APOF's won't be as crazy. BCJ's, who knows? Because BCJ is a he's been in the scene for a while and he's played at the top level before. So EG might try to milk every penny out of him. But APOF, I would like to hope, can go find a team. Uh, who knows? Maybe it doesn't look like it's going to happen in the partnership league, but maybe in tier two, and maybe he can join a team that's fighting for a ascension spot, if possible, because I think he deserves it. He's a really really good player. Reformed and Icy are the two players not listed here. Those are the two players that can pretty much do what they want. Screwface was about to join Cloud9 until MCE got booted from Cloud9, so now he's kind of back at square one. Actually, it's not even back at square one, it's like back at square -5 because he is now at a massive disadvantage at joining a team. And then Potter is obviously contracted till 2024. But with how this EG roster has been treated, with how her family has been treated, I will not be surprised if she decides to leave. If she decides to leave the team, um, by the end of you know, when her contract ends, considering how everything has been handled. So yeah, it's it's incredibly fucked up and it's incredibly wrong, and things shouldn't be this way, but they are because EG is scummy and they're terrible. Um, so before I get into my rant, I do have a big rant that I'm gonna have here in a little bit. But before I do that, I want to just kind of be emotional. Just kind of talk to the players, talk about the players, talk about the parents and that situation. Um, it's obviously really really emotional for me as a fan to see this happen. You know, to these guys, to these players. I wish I was able to go to Champions. It would have been really cool, but I wasn't able to. And to see a group of guys that I've seen work so hard and be misrepresented by the community at multiple times, to see this horrible news happen right after winning Champions is it's unforgivable. It's unforgivable. Um, and I just kind of wanted to go down the list. Not super in depth. Not super in depth. I did that in depth. I did that. I did that when they won champions. But I want to do it briefly again, just to kind of reemphasize like how much these players mean to me. Because at the end of the day, this win at champions to me was probably the best thing that's ever happened for me as a fan in esports/sports. I'm a Sixers fan. There's nothing to be happy about right now in that. Chelsea is an absolute abomination. Um, you know, F1 is not even worth watching at the moment. Uh, yeah, I mean, look, EG, this Valorant team is pretty much it for me. This win was more. It meant more to me that EG won this event than Cloud9 winning the major in Counter Strike, which is a pretty bold statement for me to make. But for me personally, it was. It was a huge moment, and I haven't stopped thinking about them winning, and I haven't stopped thinking about the situation we're in now. I've been thinking about it every single day, um, and it hurts. It hurts really really bad. Um, Boostio is again. I've said it before. I watched him when he first joined the team. What, 2 years ago? To think that we're here now is incredible. Well, in some ways incredible, but then obviously with what's just happened, it's fucking sad that an organization would treat a long-standing player like this. Um, Demon One, or I'll get to Demon One at the end. Calm, clearly he's just such a nice person. Like he's one of the nicest people I've ever seen, and I've never even met the guy in person. But you can just tell, like you can tell off of the way he speaks and how he treats people, and his streams and all that. Like you can just see it. And he posted. Obviously, he's been posting a bunch of sad tweets, and he's also posted. He posted a YouTube video kind of talking about he did a little vlog for Champions, and then at the end he's talking about how he what's he looking forward to. Somebody asked, what are you looking forward to next year, and the first thing he says is, I'm looking forward to playing with my family. Essentially, I'm looking forward to playing with the people that I love, and that's been ripped away from him. It's been ripped away from him from a bunch of corporate fucking nobodies who don't understand anything. Um, and that's fucking sad. It's just fucking sad. Um, you can tell this team was a family. Ethan, like I've been watching Ethan for a very long time. I've been watching him since he was in Counter Strike because I'm a NA CSGO fan. So I've been watching him for a very very long time, and it meant the world to me to see him finally look super super happy because he doesn't show much emotion. So seeing him show that emotion and being as happy as he was, when they won champions was unbelievable. And then Jogamo. I mean, the dude, he's so good. He was the MVP of the final. Like, it's so crazy. Like, I remember when Jogamo was having to play Jet. He's played so many different things. He's played Jet. He's played fucking Smokes. He's played fucking Flex. He's played everything. Like, he's played so many different roles. Um, and he just always seems to adapt, and that mechanical skill is still there, and you can see it. And he just seems like such a nice person. I think he said something about maybe his family not being able to go to events very often, and so but they were able to go to champions, and that meant a lot to him. And so you just see it. Like you just see the family and the camaraderie within the team. With Potter acting as kind of like the I don't want to say the mom of the group, but like the caretaker, the one who makes sure they're all on track and make sure they don't get out of hand, but the one who cares for all of them ultimately. Um, Demon One I want to get to last because Demon One is the player that I think has been criticized the most for being toxic, for being a jerk, for just people just saying outrageous shit about him. Frankly, the poor guy streams almost every day, and fucking he just he answers every fucking question. He answers every question. What streamers do you see? What people like him do you see that answer? He literally is looking at chat most of the. He probably looks at chat more than he actually plays the fucking game when he's playing ranked. Like he cares about his chat so much, um, and he will answer the same bullshit questions over and over and over again. What's your sensitivity? What's your res? What's your fucking Wu-Ting settings? Like whatever it is, he answers them, and and he has fun with his chat, and he supports his girlfriend by watching her games on stream. Like the dude is a really nice guy. He's just a really, really nice guy. And yeah, maybe he's a little bit he's not as street smart as maybe some of the other guys, but he's a nice dude. Like he's just a very nice person, who just happens to be very confident in his abilities. And to the point of maybe a little bit of arrogance, but it's a lot of confidence, and you need that as a player like he is. And um, look, they've been using him. EG has been using him. They tried to use him with the whole like, oh, the open tryouts is out, who wants to be Demon 2? And it's like, you're really going to say that when you just behind the scenes also have decided to get rid of Demon, like essentially say like, hey, Demon 1, you can leave, by the way. Like, what is that? Also, how are you going to get rid of Demon 1 of all the players on the roster? If Potter is saying that Demon 1 is the Nico slash Simple of Valorant, which by the way, that's a little bit over the top at the moment. Okay, Demon One needs to show some consistency. He needs to show consistent results, just individually. Even if he doesn't win everything, he just needs to be consistently like the best player or roughly the best player at every single event. Which I say just as if that's easy to do, but he would need to show consistency to be called the Simple or Nico of Valorant. Like Valorant hasn't been around long enough for you to claim that, but clearly she thinks he has the potential to do that. So how are you, if you're EG, going to get rid of a player like Demon 1 who has that kind of potential? That is outrageous. That is a once in a generational type of talent. You do not get rid of those players. You do not get rid of those players no matter what. Okay? You give them whatever they ask for. Um, I mean, you give all these guys whatever they ask for, frankly, but especially Demon 1. Yeah. Look, in terms of cost cutting, this decision doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Um, you've removed the reserve roster. That should give you some more inflow. You're looking to sell your LCS spot. Potentially, even if you can't sell the LCS spot, maybe you can sell some of your other. Maybe you can just sell your team, right? You can sell your players, and yeah, you're probably gonna have a pretty dog shit roster in the LCS, but you can cut costs and just kind of sign whoever. And sure, you'll be probably the worst team in the LCS, but you're cutting costs, and maybe then it allows you to afford to spend more money on your Valorant team. Um, some people have argued you should get rid of the Counter Strike team, which I'm a big Counter Strike fan, so that would personally hurt me a little bit, but I understand the point. Get rid of the Counter Strike team; it's not performing well. Stick with the Valorant team. That team is winning. You do whatever you have to do to keep the Valorant roster. It's as simple as that. Um, and I don't listen. I don't love that decision, but look, if you got to make a hard decision, it's one that you kind of have to make. Um, you got rid of your reserve players, like I said. That should give you more inflow. More cash flow. You got rid of your assistant coach. That should give you some more cash flow. Um, look, there were other options. Look, the worst case scenario, if you had to get rid of, let's say you could only keep two players, right? Let's say if you're EG, you can only keep two players. These are the two players you keep: Demon 1 and Ethan. Demon 1 and Ethan. Now, why do I say Demon 1 and Ethan? I say Demon 1 because he's Demon 1. Simple as that. You don't get rid of a guy like Demon 1. You just don't. Not for anybody. Ethan, because 1, he has good chemistry with Demon 1. 2, he can play pretty much any role in the game. He can play. I don't think I've seen him play Sentinel professionally, but he's played Smokes, he's played Initiator, he's played Duelist. He can do it all. you keep those 2 players because those are 2 players that will perform no matter what roster you have, and you know that. I don't love that decision. I don't think that's the best decision. But if you have to make a decision, and it's either that or get rid of the entire roster, I would much rather choose that. The other alternative would be if you literally cannot keep a single player from the main roster, move up your reserve roster. Your reserve roster was supposedly beating championship level teams in scrims. Move up the reserve roster. Why is that so difficult to understand? You would be cutting costs. It's a good move. I mean, I say good move in the bullshit sense that we're going under the assumption that this is somehow all about EG can't spend a dime on anybody, which I already disagree with. And so, yeah, it's fucking criminal. It's fucking criminal what this organization has done to these players. They've definitely hurt themselves from a marketing standpoint. They have hurt themselves from a fan base standpoint. They will never have fans again. Nobody is going to buy their merch. Nobody is going to buy their in-game cosmetics. When they come out with a Champions t-shirt, nobody is going to want to buy it because you've fucked over the players, and that money's not going to the players, presumably. So fuck you for that. Nobody's buying that shit. You've just fucked yourselves. Like you will not. You're not winning in this scenario. Even if you cut the cost, you're capping. You are ruining the potential revenue you could have made. If you would just capitalize better on these opportunities. And so here comes the rant. Get ready for your popcorn, ladies and gentlemen. Because I've been seeing some shit. I've been seeing some shit that's been pissing me the fuck off. I have been seeing people make the claim that this is the industry's fault. Oh, look at the EG situation. It's just, how are you guys surprised? How are you guys surprised? This is what's supposed to happen. We all knew there were going to be pay cuts. You didn't see it? You didn't think there'd be pay cuts? Are you stupid? It's the industry. Look at esports right now. You can't monetize esports. What were they supposed to do? What were they supposed to do? I've been seeing that take. I have been seeing that take from Jake Lucky. Dr. Respawn, unfortunately, has made that opinion. I don't understand this notion that this is the industry. It's just, it's the reality of the industry. And there's nothing EG could have done about it. There's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. It is not EG's fault. What? What do you mean it's not EG's fault? Are you fucking crazy? No. I am not going to listen to that bullshit. I will not listen to that bullshit. Here's why I'm not going to listen to that bullshit. Last time I checked, none of this is the industry's fault. It's not the industry's fault that Evil Geniuses has overspent on players for years. They overpaid for players like Breezy and Cirque. They overpaid for players in League of Legends when they brought Inspired over from EU, when they got Impact, when they have paid for all these other LCS players. They overspent when they decided to sign 3 Counter-Strike teams, or 2 new Counter-Strike teams, but when they had 4 Counter-Strike teams. That was you. That was you, EG. You spent that money. You spent that money. That is not the industry's fault that you spent that money and you didn't know how to handle it. That's your fault. It's not the industry's fault that your marketing department fucking blows and Casey should be fucking fired. They suck. They're the worst marketing department I've ever seen in God knows how long. Like, you gotta understand this. There are tier 2 organizations like Eyeballers that create better content and better, social media presence than EG does. It's atrocious. Have you seen the EG panels? They're a disgrace on their social media. Did you see the evil exhibited bullshit that they were pulling this season? It was fucking dumb, and it didn't work, and it looked like shit. The content is shit and non-existent. They lie about the content. It's not the industry's fault that EG repeatedly will claim they are making content and then not release it. That is EG's fault. It is not the industry's fault. It is not the industry's fault that the merch that EG creates is dog shit. Do I need to repeat? Do I need to show this again on the fucking stream? Do I need to show this on the stream again? This is the kind of shit that they're releasing to the market. This is the kind of shit that they want people to buy. Take a look, right? Obviously, the first one being the Champions t-shirt, which they renamed the meme tee because they got so much backlash. They had to rename it. But they didn't take it off the market like ethically responsible people would. They just kept it there and named it the meme t-shirt. But this was not the meme t-shirt. This is what they wanted it to be. Right? The 10th fan t-shirt. What is this shit? It's a joke. It's a fucking slap in the face to anyone who is an EG fan or who wants to buy merch for this organization. It's a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke. All right, let's go back. What else do we got? Oh, we got the Potter Supremacy shirt. Yeah, Potter, your legendary coach. You're all about, EG's all about, women in esports. And then a woman in esport finally does something legendary, does something that shatters esports barriers by winning champions, fucking champions with a female coach, which has never been done before. And what do? You create, well, this was created actually during Tokyo, but you create this shit. This is the merch that you have for Potter. What a fucking disgrace. What a fucking disgrace. There's content that Riot made for Valorant Champions with Potter that was better than the EG has made for Potter on their own fucking YouTube channel. What a fucking disgrace. Not the industry's fault. Don't care. Yeah, you seemingly don't fucking care, EG. You don't fucking care. You don't care about your marketing. You don't care about your players. You don't care about your fans. You don't care about ethical responsibility. You don't care about any of it. It's not the industry's fault. It's your fault. What is this shit? $35. I could make this shit for fucking free. What a joke. Right? So, it's not the industry's fault that you created that as your merch. You know, it's also not the industry's fault that you had Tarek in the palm of your hand as a content creator. He was on your creator collective because he left Evil Genius's CSGO team and he moved over to stream Valorant. And he was there, and you had him. And what did you do? You let him go. Now he's a content creator for Sentinels, and he racks in like 90% of the Valorant viewership. That could have been you. That's a marketing opportunity that you threw away. You had Stewie 2K, you did the same thing. You let him go. Did you use any of them to create content while they were a part of your creator collective? Fuck no. You created dog shit content. If they were in any content, it was bullshit, obvious PR, dumb marketing that was not even good and nobody cared about it. You suck at marketing. And it's not the industry's fault that you have failed to capitalize on the opportunities that you've had. You had an LCS team that won the spring split and that was coming into the next year, performed the best at Worlds, by the way, had to go through the last chance qualifier, did well at Worlds for an NA team, went into the next season, made massive upgrades, looked like they were going to be a dominant roster, had a slightly underwhelming performance, but clearly the players were upset and were going to turn things around. And what did you do? You got rid of them. And did you create any content with them? No. You created some podcast, not podcasts, but you created some, like, oh, look, this is us in week 3 of the LCS. And that was it. That was all you did. You did no other content with them. What a fucking joke. You go into Valorant, you have this legendary roster that ends up winning champions. Do you create any fucking great content for this team? No. You create some cool content, some funny content on the side, but in terms of like a documentary, right? Look what Liquid did for their roster that won the Intel Grand Slam. They documented the whole thing. They released it in this epic fucking video, paying homage to the players and the grind that it took for them to get there. You could have done that. That would have been so fucking sick. I'm just some fucking kid in my room and I could have come up with that shit. You couldn't do it because you don't know how to, because you don't have any creativity, because you're fucking a waste. You're just a waste. And it's not the industry's fault that you don't understand marketing. It's your fault. It's your fault. So fuck that noise. It's not the industry's fault. It's your fucking fault. And it's not the industry's fault that you have repeatedly treated players and employees and staff as absolute dog shit. That you have treated them horribly. You have physically and emotionally abused these people. That is your fucking fault. It is not the industry's. It is not the industry's fault that you treated the Counter-Strike team like dog shit. In 2020, or whenever it was the height of COVID, you set them to go to a boot camp. You did not handle the situation properly by allowing them by making sure that your players and staff were going under the right precautions during COVID. They ended up getting COVID, and you forced them to sign NDAs so they couldn't say anything about it. That was your fault. It's not the industry's fault that also with the Counter-Strike team, Hext had to be put under fire for tweets he made years ago because you didn't vet him properly. And then when he did get exposed for making those tweets, you didn't defend him at all. You just let it sit there, and you let him take all that abuse. It's not the industry's fault. Your fault. It's not the industry's fault that after winning one fucking series against Heroic, your fucking upper management decided to act all big and bad and talk about how great you were and how you were going to shut everybody up, and then you proceeded to do fucking nothing for the rest of the year, to the point where every fucking Counter-Strike fan wanted your team to lose, where there was literally people betting on your team not qualifying for the major and putting an unreal amount of pressure on players like Wiz, who had just joined the roster and had the hardest switch ever, going from Tier 2 NA opping to Tier 1 opping in Europe. And he was put under the most pressure anyone has ever fucking been in, I swear to God. And you put him in that position. That's not the industry's fault. That's your fault. And you never apologized for it. It's not the industry's fault that you yelled. You allowed GamerDoc to criticize and essentially not just criticize, but slander, essentially, legendary analysts and casters in the Counter-Strike space, and she didn't apologize for it. Your fault. It's not the industry's fault that you mistreated Danny in the LCS to the point where he was emotionally and physically unwell, to the point where he stopped playing League of Legends professionally altogether, to the point where he would be giving you lawsuits, to the point where he literally, the second he was allowed to go to a hospital, he had to go to a hospital because he was that fucking broken. You did that. Not the industry, you. You did it. It's not the industry's fault that there was news that came out that the LCS Academy players were being abused under GamerDoc's supervision. It's your fault, not the industry's. It's not the industry's fault that you got rid of a legendary Dota 2 roster. Dota 2, the one place where EG still had a fan favorite brand in an esport, because of the success that they had at TI, and because of the legendary players they had on their roster, that EG treated like gold. You decided to get rid of that roster, to sign a South American team just because it was cheaper, and then when they begged and they pleaded for some kind of mental coach to help them with the mental struggles they were dealing with, it took months for them to get what they needed, because you didn't want to do it, because you didn't care about the players, because you cared about your bottom line, because that's all you fucking cared about. It's not the industry's fault. That's your fault. It's not the industry's fault that you've done what you've done to these Valorant players. You did this. Those Valorant players have worked their asses off for you. They have created everything for you. They have given you an opportunity that you could have never even fucking dreamed of, and you've ripped it away from them. And you're fucking them over by potentially holding them hostage onto this roster for next year. They literally might have a chance of playing against their will for this organization next year, and it might actually happen. And it's all because of you and your incompetence. Because you don't lead the industry in any moral or ethical standards. You set the bottom standard for it. You are the bottom of the barrel. You fucking suck at it. And it's your fault, not the industry's. You can blame it on the economics all you want. You made all these decisions. You fucked over all these players. All these staff members. All of these staff members are fucking leaving because of you. The employees, the interns that are joining this organization, hoping to create a new EG, hoping to better them and make them prosper, who leave months later with their whole worldview shattered. Not because of the industry, not because of the economics of the industry, because of you. You did that. So I don't want to fucking hear a peep about how this is all just expected. And hey, with the current climate, Pay cuts had to come. Because you know what? Even in the economical situation we're in, a 50% pay cut for anybody, I don't care if you win the world championship, a 50% pay cut while you're still under contract is fucking outrageous. End of story. And for the shady shit that you've done, to go and make the claims that these people are making, that this is just the way things are, isn't accurate. You know who made things? Why don't people ask the deeper questions? Like, who made the industry what it is right now? Who got us to that point? It was the orgs. The orgs who just paid whatever they could for these players. The players weren't going to say no. The orgs are, if you're telling a player he can get this amount, X amount of money, he's going to take it. It's not the player's fault. It's your fault. Also, how about all that marketing? How about the sponsorships that you've lost? Is that the industry's fault? Did you lose the Monster Energy sponsorship because of the industry and how it currently is? Because I see Monster Energy sponsoring other teams. I see Bud Light sponsoring other teams. But you lost those sponsorships. Huh. Is that the industry's fault? I don't think so. I think that's your fault. I think you fucked that up. You fucked up a decade plus long sponsorship with Monster, where just years ago, not even that long ago, they were just saying, oh no, we want to be with EG for the rest of their time in esports. And then they suddenly terminate everything on bad terms. Is that the player's fault? Is that is that the players or the staff, or no, it's not their fault. Is it the industry's fault? I mean, no, it can't be the industry. Oh, it's your fault. It's your fault. Oh, and do you think the players should be taking the pay cut when it's your fault? No, you should. You should be taking the pay cut. You should be taking the pay cut. All you people who have made all these mistakes, fucking Nicole, obviously she's not, part of the organization, whatever. She should have been taking pay cuts before. Chris, you deserve a pay cut. Casey, you deserve a pay cut. GamerDoc, you deserve a pay cut. That other chick who keeps getting mentioned in Richard's articles that for some reason I'm not remembering right now, I think her name might be Jessica, I can't remember. Her ass, she should be getting a pay cut. All these upper level executives, all these people who are fucking people over on the daily, they deserve pay cuts. Are they going to take them though? No, they won't. Because they don't want to affect their bottom line. They're the scummiest fucking org in esports. They might be the scummiest org in esports history. And that hurts me to say, because EG was not this way before. And it pains me that this is the EG now, because this is not what they stood for before. It's why I've changed the branding of the stream. I've always wanted to, but especially after all the news that has just come out, I can't hold out anymore. It's not okay. So fuck you all who are saying this is the industry's, this is just the current climate. You clearly don't understand what's been happening with this org. You clearly aren't paying attention. So that was my rant. I wanted to get that out there. Before I transition into the Counter-Strike segment, which unfortunately it isn't looking like Current is going to be available. I haven't gotten a response yet, so it's looking like I might be handling the EPL segment on my own. I do want to, I guess, give a message to the parents. Obviously, this whole thing has been a message to the parents and me ranting for them in a way for, to help them know, help the players and parents know, like, you're not the only one who's mad. You're not the only one who's angry. There are people here, who support your children, who support you, who want good things for your children. And I will support EG players no matter where they go. I still follow the Rocket League guys when they got kicked from their teams in January. I follow all the old EG people in the CSGO teams, right? So I follow where they go. I follow what they do. And thankfully, it's been good things for the most part for most of them. I'm following the League of Legends players as well. I'm really hoping Inspired gets on a big European roster next year. Jojo Pyun might be gone, so I'm looking. I want to see how well he does in the future and whatever. And so I look out for these players, or at least maybe not look out for is maybe the wrong term, because there's not much I can do. But I watch these players. I try to support them when they leave EG, because it's not the players or the staff, the lower level staff that's the problem. It's the upper management. It's the people who for some reason just repeatedly um, keep making these awful decisions. Um, and well, I mean, I know why, but those are the people I'm against. I'm not against the players. Um, and it sucks that the parents and players have been put in this position. It really does. It hurts my fucking heart. Um, you know, um, and I just, this is why I kept saying for I've said this since the beginning of the podcast, like a year ago. Um, when people were EG was, it's typically guys, the companies that claim that they're a family and they just can't stop claiming that they're a family. Those are the companies that aren't family at all. Those are the companies where it's a fucking vicious hierarchy, and they will fire you if you even so much as look at them the wrong way. Those are the kind of companies that claim that they're a family, and can't stop talking about how they're a family. Um, and EG is the same thing, and they were claiming this shit last year. They were claiming this shit last year nonstop, and I kept saying they're not a family, guys. They're not a family. Um, they're just gonna use you, and when you've done what they need you to do, you're gone. Um, they're not gonna waste a second on fucking you over, and that's exactly what's happened here. And it's a shame because this is the actual when they finally have had a family, when they finally have had a team that has literally been like family, where all these players love each other and consider each other brothers in arms. And and all the parents. I mean, I don't know the specifics, but it sounds like you all get along very well, and are very thankful for the fact that EG even gave your children the opportunity, for Valorant for existing, and Riot Games for being the people who made Valorant and all that, and have been running these tournaments. You all seem very thankful for that, and I've tried to mention that Riot doesn't care about you. Riot's gonna fuck you over. EG doesn't care about you. They're gonna fuck you over. And I wasn't saying that to be a dick. I was saying that because I wanted the parents to think critically about when they see reports come out about what happened with Danny, when they see reports about what's happening with Sumail, who's reporting a lawsuit. I didn't even mention him in my rant, but Sumail, who's literally going into a lawsuit with Evil Geniuses. Nicole's going to be there in just a couple months' time, and it's going to go to trial, and court. Seeing what has happened with Hex, seeing what's happened with, the interns that have come in, right? It's like, look, the parents might have gone to EG's headquarters in Seattle, and maybe Nicole. I would imagine Nicole was very very nice to them. I'm sure. She seems like a very charismatic person, someone who really can you can talk to her and she'll make you feel like you're special. Um, but it's all a facade. It's not real, and unfortunately it's happened, and it fucking sucks and it hurts. And I just want the parents to know that no matter what happens, there will be fans to support your children. Um, and that, you know, I'm so sorry for what's happened. I'm so sorry. Um, it hurts me. I can't say it hurts me as much as it hurts you because I'm not in your position and I can never know what that's like. But as someone who has watched EG for years now and has had to watch this the players suffer so much, has watched so many things just always losing. Um, this team meant the world to me, and I'm including the reserve roster in this, obviously, and it truly hurts to see this happen to people that I've never met in person, but I care about so deeply. From doing this podcast, I've talked about this with Kern on the show multiple times, and he's mentioned this as well. Like when you're covering these teams, you become emotionally invested very easily, and you really pray for the success of these players, and you feel for them on a personal level, because they're exposing themselves to the world, and they're exposing their own emotions to the world, and I can understand that. Even if I never know what that's like, I can certainly sympathize with it, and I know there's no way for me to know what you're feeling right now, but just know that there are people that want the best for you, and I highly recommend that you guys, if you want to learn more about what EG is really like, and you haven't taken the time to do that because things were going so well for your children, I implore you, please go to Richard Lewis's Substack. Search up Richard Lewis Substack. Go to his archive and go look at all the EG articles that he's made. He has gone in detail. He has talked to people at EG, and you'll finally you'll be able to see what this company is like. Um, and you know, and if you want to reach out to him, you're more. I would be shocked if he wouldn't want to hear you out. Um, and I want what's best for these people. Um, and there's nothing I can do other than try to create some awareness for it. Not that anyone is even watching or whatever, but I want these players to get what they deserve. I want them to go to these other teams. Um, I obviously would the perfect situation would be for them to go to a different organization that's in the partnered league, but just all go together. But that's just not going to happen. So the best that can happen for these players at this point is for them to get paid by going to other teams. Um, and I will support any and all of those guys, no matter where they go. Even if they're in tier two, I'll watch their games. I'll support them because I care about them. I really do. Um, and and that hurts me to say that as an EG. It hurts me for the future players and the future kids that are going to be joining this fucking org in Valorant if these players end up leaving. Um, because they might get booed when they go on stage, and it's not even their fault. The fan base is so young. There's a chance these players get scrutinized for something that's not even their fault. Um, and those contracts are scary, man. These EG people, man, they're corporate. They know they know how to formulate contracts and shit. They're owned by Peak Six, which is an arbitrage company. They know what they're doing, man. They know what they're doing. They know how to fuck you over. They know how to make little clauses and little lines in there that people can't pick up. And unfortunately, lawyers, who support the players in esports, frankly, at this moment in time, are just not good enough. There's not enough of them, and they're not good enough. Um, and it's a problem in the space, because these orgs will take advantage of that. And that's what EG's been doing for a long time now. This under this new management. Um, and it's sad. Um, it's just so sad. I think the last bits of information that I want to get out, Richard Lewis posted this, or talked about this on a stream. It's looking like he's going to post more articles about EG very soon. He's already posted the one about Andrew Barton leaving EG suddenly. But he's also mentioned that EG might be looking to have a seller, or a buyer, I should say. They're looking to sell potentially. And I can only hope that whoever buys them, hires someone like an Alex Garfield, someone who understands the esports space and can bring EG back to what they used to be. Bring back the old logo, bring back the right people to this organization, who can drive them and put them, where they used to be. An organization that had great people working for them, that was creative and tried unique ways and staying into the game as long as they could, who tried to support their players for as long as they could. Um, and that's all I can hope and pray for, and I'm sure that's all the parents would want at this point, right? Um, is hoping for that to kind of work out, I guess. And it's a shame because look, Peak Six is I looked up the net worth. Peak So they're worth $2.53 billion, and yet they don't have the money for these players. Peak Six. I don't know. It seems fucked to me. It seems fucked to me. And so yeah, I'm trying to think of what else to say here, but um, other than just sorry. But I don't know. I think I've gone through everything. I think I've hit every point that I wanted to hit, and hopefully I have. Hopefully there's nothing I missed. But I think that's gonna do it for the Valorant section. Again, here comes a fucking banger for Counter Strike. So stay tuned. You want more EG shady shit? It's coming up in just a second. Current's not here. I haven't gotten a response from him, so I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do this one on my own. which is unfortunate because I really wanted to talk EPL with him, but he's just not available, it seems, for the moment. So, okay, let's go to the Counter-Strike section real quick. So we're just going to do EG CSGO. I'm not even going to specify EPL groups. So here's the bombshell. The bombshell is Richard Lewis on the same time he was talking about the Valorant shit. He also dropped a bombshell that the Counter-Strike team, there was a reason why they made the Blueprint project, and it wasn't because they cared about North American Counter-Strike. Even though that's all they kept talking about was how they wanted to help NACS, and a lot of so many players and people who were casters, analysts, coaches that were all from the NA scene that were defending EG for the decisions they were making and really went to bat for them. And so it's really sad to see this, but they they did not sign these players. They didn't sign these two teams, EG Black and EG White. They didn't sign them because they actually care about North American Counter-Strike. They signed them because ESL Pro League was literally about to kick them out of the league. Pro League was about to kick them out. The ESL Faceit Group was going to kick Evil Geniuses out of their partnership, the Louvre agreement, and EG guilt tripped them. They guilt tripped them. They said, "Oh, ESL, remember when you guys fucked over EG, or you fucked over NA by taking away all the EPL slots, and then COVID happened, and there was no competition for the North American teams, and you fucked over NA and all this, right? And you took away their Pro League and whatever. Remember when you did all that? Well, we're about to sign two additional North American teams, and under the Blueprint project, you wouldn't want to fuck over NA again by getting rid of a North American team, a team that's going to have 3 North American rosters, would you?" And ESL said, "Fine, you can stay." So they kind of bribed them in a way, and they signed these teams with ill intent, which makes so much more sense as to why EG White was a complete waste of time, and the players basically played no tournaments and kind of were fucked over. It makes a lot more sense now when you see all this, right? So that's just depressing. And I'm sure there's going to be more about that soon, and I'm sure Richard Lewis is going to do more reporting on that and find out more or whatever. But it's fucking disgraceful. It's fucking disgraceful. Okay, let's talk about Pro League. I've been seeing some crazy shit about people and their opinions on Pro League. Because I've heard some pretty outrageous shit that EG, this is like the best EG roster ever, and like, wow, this roster's so good, and what a great, yeah, they ended up losing in Pro League, but they had a good run, and like all this crazy shit. I can't take that shit to save my life. Like, how is that what people got out of this? Because that's not what I got out of this. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. So, to recap, my predictions for the ESL Pro League Group B predictions was that EG was going to finish like second to last at worst, and they, I didn't think they were going to make playoffs, but I figured they could be like worst case scenario, the second worst team in their group. And that's literally what they did. They were the second worst team in their group, which I, again, said was the worst result they could have. I didn't think they were going to lose to Rooster. I thought Rooster was just not good. There was no way that in my mind they were going to lose to Rooster. But to everybody else, I thought they could lose. They could beat MIBR. They had beaten them in the past, but I was kind of like, yeah, at best they might beat MIBR, but then probably lose in the 4th place decider. And they did the worst result that I predicted. So I don't know why this was seen as like a success story to me. because to me it's just they performed as expected. Another bad performance overall at an EPL. But people took it that way. And I think they took it that way for a couple of reasons. And let's break into the first reason, which is their performance versus ENTS. EG's series versus ENTS, which was I don't want to call it close because it really wasn't. But I'll say that it was more competitive than people were expecting. EG picked Mirage, ENTS picked Nuke. The decider was on Ancient. It didn't go to Ancient. It was a 2-0 for ENTS, which, if you just look at that series scoreline, you would go 2-0. Okay, EG got clapped. They didn't get clapped, but it certainly, it was certainly a strong series for ENTS. There really wasn't any way EG was going to win the series, but it was certainly a good performance for EG standards. And yeah, in terms of top performers, Hext was very, very good. He was the best player for EG. He was the best player at EPL for EG, which I'm very proud of, very happy about. People were shitting on Hext for a long time now, and I've been saying that you just need to give the man some time and some consistency. And look what happens when you do both of those things. And the pressure goes down from not, being claimed as we beat Heroic, look how good we are. Bullshit, whatever. And yeah, he had some time back on EG Black, and then he's moved back up, and he's been great. So happy for Hext. But in this particular series, Mirage, why is EG picking Mirage? Why is EG picking Mirage every time? I don't really understand why they're doing it. Like, it's a map that they were not very great at when they were playing in North America. It was one of their Achilles heels, and I'm sure they put a lot of work into it, but it's very hit and miss. EG is a team that I can't predict their map pool. I really can't. Like, even like Nuke, I guess by default now after EPL has to be considered their best map, but like it just seems like such a fucking like seesaw. Like you either if it's EG, they either like they're either gonna have it's one of three things. They're either gonna have and I understand that when I put these three categories out there, it's like, well, yeah, isn't that every half for every team? But the variance is too much. The variance is too much. It's either they fucking dominate in the half, they get shit on in the half, or it's like a 9-6. And the problem is you never know what it's going to be on any side. It's not like EG's like, oh, we're going on to our CT side Mirage. Like, this is what we're good at. Like, no, you don't know. You have no clue what's going to happen. You don't know if EG's about to have a really good half, or if they're about to have a really bad half, or if they're about to have a half where it's kind of meh. And that's the problem for EG. Or one of the problems. They also just can't win rounds where they have economical advantages. So it's like, all right, EG wins a round. They've broken the money events. They're moving into this round. This should be a clean round for EG. All they got to do is keep it clean. And what do? They fucking lose the whole round. And it's like, guys, like, you put yourselves in such a great spot, and then you just fucking ruin it. Like, you just can't help but ruin it. And that's what kept happening. Is EG would go on a comeback, they'd go down early, they'd make a massive comeback at the end of the game, and then what would they do? They'd lose a crucial round at the end, and they'd lose the game. And that just happened every single time. Every time. And I don't know why, but that's just what kept happening. So, props for the resilience, but, like, you gotta win the rounds that are going to give you the massive economical advantage and are going to catapult your economy and let you go on a run. And they just couldn't do it. And so, yeah, Mirage not that close, honestly. Nuke was much closer. I did not think it was going very well when it was a 6-9 half going into the T side for EG. But their T side was pretty good, and they had some potential. But I think they actually even might have hit match point first. Yeah, they hit match point first, and they just couldn't close. And yep, that's just And you look at Hex, right? Most first kills on Nuke and most damage on Nuke. He had a very good Nuke. He went 24 and 21. He was the only positive player on EG with a 1.27 rating, which was the third best on the server. So very proud of Hext. He did phenomenally this event. Automatic was very lackluster this event. I saw somebody say that they want Automatic kicked. Like, I just can't, man. Like, you fucking people are so dumb. I just don't understand. Like, why do you want automatic kicked after one bad event, dude? He's been our best player for fucking ever, dude. One bad EPL, an event that nobody cares about, and we're just gonna, yeah, we're automatic should be kicked. Like, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. You guys, man, I don't know. What's wrong with y'all? Like, what is this? What is it? Why are we kicking automatic? What is he? What for one bad event? For one bad event? Fuck me. I just can't believe it, man. It's so stupid. Um, yeah, the game against Sense was relatively close. It was good for EG standards, right? Good for EG standards. Then they go play Mouse, a team that had just lost to MIBR. And yeah, this was a heartbreaking series. This was the definitive EG. They played Ancient and Inferno. It was a 2-0 for Mouse, but it very well could have been, and in many ways should have been, a 2-0 for EG. EG could not get out of their own damn way. They couldn't get out of their own damn way. They go on a They start off the T side of Ancient. Oh god damn! They only have 5 rounds. Oh no! And Mouse is already at fucking 10. What happens on the next pistol round? Mouse wins and goes on a 3-round win streak. Oh shit! It's now 13-5. We're in trouble. What does EG do? They go on a massive just CT round spree, and they get to match point right before Mouse does, 15-14. What do? They lose they lose that round, and then they lose every single round in overtime. I mean, what do I say? What do I say? Uh, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, god damn it. Automatic, I want to point out, was doing, I think, really, really poorly at first, and then he kind of like started picking it up towards the end. Just not enough. I believe it was automatic, or maybe it wasn't automatic. I don't know. He went 17. Yeah, he went 17-11 on his CT side. Yeah, it was automatic. He kind of was showing up on that second half, but ultimately not enough. Yeah, he had 3 kills in the first half. In the first half on T side, automatic did. On the second half, he got 17 kills. So yeah, he was pretty good in that second half, but not enough ultimately. Mao's exertion, for some reason, always seems to pop off when he plays us. I don't know why, but exertion always pops off when he plays us, and he did in this map. Moving on to Inferno, EG, horrible start, right? Only 5 rounds on their CT side of Inferno. Oh my god. What do? They go into the first round of T side. They pick up 5 rounds. Fucking incredible. And then what do? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, lose the game. Get to match point first, or not get to match point first. Get to 13. I think it was what was it? Let's see here. It was 5. So that's 10-10. They were tied 13-13. And what do? Lose the next 3 rounds. And I don't know the economy situation on 13-13, but I think there were rounds in there where EG had an advantage and they just choked. Hext, again, standout performance, 26 kills and 20 deaths. Had a 1.32 rating on the map. At an 86.4 ADR, the second highest on the server. The only one doing better was Jimpat, with a 1.37 rating and an 87.6 ADR. Junior was okay. Junior had a very meh event. I would say it was like about slightly below average, I would say. A lot of missed shots where he should have hit. He seems to just still miss the easy shots at times. It frustrates me to no fucking end. But yeah, I don't know. He just kind of misses some easy shots sometimes. Automatic, like we said, had probably one of his worst events I've seen in a while. George, he's still adapting. Had some decent maps, but I'm willing to give George a lot of time. It's taken Hex a decent amount of time to be able to get used to Tier 1, so I'm willing to give George a lot of time. Walco, I thought his calling was relatively good for the most part. I don't really care about his individual performance because I personally feel like the other players needed to do a little bit better. But obviously, Walco needs to perform a little bit better as well. But whatever. So that was the series against Mouse. Very heartbreaking. Two close maps, but they ultimately lose both, and they then have to go and play against Rooster, which they dominate this match. I think there might have been one close map. 16, no, not really. 16-10 on Nuke, 16-6 on Mirage. Oh, no, that's what it was. Yeah, Rooster was up 10-5. I forgot. Yeah, Rooster was up 10-5 on Nuke. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Shit. Yeah, they were up 10-5 on Nuke. And then Rooster went to their T side and proceeded to do literally nothing. And EG just kind of won the map with 11 rounds straight. So that was pretty cool. And then Mirage was the first map, and Rooster picked it, and it didn't go well for Rooster. Listen, not a bad pick from Rooster to pick Mirage. Mirage is not a good map for EG, but it just did not work, and Automatic popped off, Junior popped off, George popped off, Hex did okay. Yeah, not really too much to say in that series. EG was by far the better team, as I expected they would be, and yeah, nothing too crazy there. But I do want to point out, maybe was this during the MA? No, wait, I think this actually was against Ents. Was it against Ents? I just remembered a moment from Hext. Was it Mouse? No, it couldn't have been Mouse. It was on Mirage. Was it on this series against MIBR? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, here it is. It was the Hext Ace on Mirage playing MIBR. Yeah, they played MIBR, a team that was looking surprisingly good at Pro League this event, and man, this one was a slog, bro. This one was a slog fest. This fucking best of three lasted so long. I think it lasted like 5 hours or something outrageous. I don't know. It felt like forever. It felt like it lasted the whole day. Um, and it started off in quick fashion because EG got fucking smashed on Ancient. Fucking smashed. EG won one round. It was the third round of the game, and then they proceeded to lose literally every round afterwards. Hext was the only one doing anything. He had a 1.13 rating with 89 ADR. Let me repeat that, had 89 ADR, and they lost 16-1. You have earned my respect. Like, getting 89 ADR when you have lost every single round but one is very impressive. Hex played well. Everybody else sucked. Yeah, I not much to say. I mean, they just got fucking battered. Going into Mirage, this one was crazy. This game just never ended. Hext dropped 35 kills, 1.38 rating, best player on the server. And George actually had the most damage with 91.5 ADR for the map. This was a fucking slog. This was a fucking brutal one. EG kind of having to, well, honestly, they had good opportunities, but they kind of fucked it up. And then MIBR kind of came back in regulation. And then overtime was very much like, what is going on? Like, it was fucking insane. They got to the second overtime, and EG win the first three, and I'm thinking, we're good. This is our time. And then EG loses the 2 rounds after that. They go to the final round, and I think they barely closed out this round. I don't remember the specifics off the top of my head, but I just remember it being a fucking chaotic overtime in general. But they finally closed it out. Automatic showed a much better performance on this map. Junior did okay. George and Hext were the standouts. George was actually negative, but he had a 1.11 rating and had 91.5 ADR, so a lot of impact from George. Automatic was very good, and Hext obviously was incredible as he's been this whole event. And then you move on to the last map, Nuke, a tragic 22-25 loss on Nuke, a game that we clawed back into. We clawed back into this game on the T side of Nuke. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, we play Rooster, we shit on them on CT side. We play MIBR, and we have to do all of our work on T side. Very strange. But, yeah. MIBR finding a lot of rounds towards the end of the first half, and EG kind of clawed back towards the end of regulation, and it was an incredible comeback. And then, you get to the overtimes, and it was just EG had chances. EG had chances, but they just in that second overtime they had two chances to win and they just didn't do it. And then the third overtime was just kind of a wash. They only got one round and it just kind of fell apart. Hext, this was one of his not as good maps. Exit had 42 kills, by the way. That's just ridiculous. EG's kills were more just kind of like they had a lot less kills than MIBR did in this map, but I think the way they were playing the map was kind of allowing them to win rounds. But yeah, ultimately not enough. Despite Junior having a pretty good map. And yeah, that was their run at EPL. Pretty much as expected, according for me at least. But certainly, I think they showed more promise in this EPL than I've seen in some other EPLs. But I don't understand the take that. Well, I'll get to that in a second. Let's quickly look at the team stats. I think the team stats pretty much resemble the same things that we've been seeing since Walco has taken over this main roster. It's kind of been the same stats that we've been accustomed to seeing. If my hltv.org will load. In that, this is a team, EG, that's really good at getting flash assists. They're really, really good with flashing when they're executing, and they seem to be at their best when they're trading well and they're throwing good flashes for each other. That seems to be when they're at their best. But obviously, dude, it's not loading. It's pissing me off. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to reopen HLTV. What is going on? Am I really not gonna be able to pull up these stats, dude? It's gonna frustrate me, dude. It's not letting me pull up the stats. Fuck. All right. Well, maybe I'll just briefly talk about what I was gonna talk about, and hopefully my stats will come back. Yeah. So, uh, I don't understand this take that like this is the best EG roster that we've had in 3 years. Like, I don't know where people are getting that ridiculous take from. When our roster with the first roster Hex was on, with Vorborg as coach and Nealon as IGL, is the first time that Nealon had been the first 6 months. Nealon was IGL, and we had Cirque still and Breeze. Guys, we made the major. Do we not remember that we made the major? Do we not remember that we almost made playoffs of EPL? We were on the cusp of winning, of being able to go to the playoffs of EPL. Do we not remember the consistent progress that we were making as a team? Do we not remember making the major? Does none of this ring a bell to you guys? What is this nonsense that this is the best roster we've had in 3 years? You guys just don't remember shit. You don't remember shit. Also, this isn't even the best roster this year. I look. The refresh roster only had one event to play. I'm pretty confident, honestly, that roster was better. It was probably the best lineup of players EG has had in a while. The individual skill on that team was on paper really good. It was really, really solid, and people were taking notice. People like Taz were even tweeting like, "Dude, how has a team with the individuals of EG performed this badly?" And the simple answer was internal pressure from evil geniuses who didn't understand how to properly handle their team, and it crippled the confidence of their players. That's what happened. Whether Vorborg or anybody else wants to admit it or not, that's what happened. And they weren't able to showcase what they were actually capable of. Which they were seemingly pretty confident that they could showcase it going into that year, going into January, going into their series against Heroic, right? They said that the scrimming was going really well and that they were going to surprise teams. And at first they did. The org took it too far. People from the orgs kept saying outrageous shit, and the pressure kept building and building and building until I'm sure the atmosphere in the team was feeling quite grim. And so, yeah. Look, I still think that roster was on paper, the best roster we've had. And it showed more things than this roster has. So I don't understand why people want to just hop on the bandwagon hope train, the NA hopium train, that this is like the best EG we've seen when it's not. The previous rosters have shown more. I'm not making the claim that, this roster sucks because they're not showing as much. That's outrageous to me. This is a roster that I need to see develop over a year long time frame, at a minimum. Um, and so we'll see how they do. I have not been impressed with their regional results in NA. They have been underperforming against teams like M80 and Forsaken. I thought M80 was going to do actually much better in Pro League than they did. They did much worse, but it's their first international tournament, so I'm willing to give M80 some slack. But I still think M80 showed more progress and more good things regionally, and Forsaken did as well than EG did during their regional time frame. So we'll see with ECL how that pans out. But I think EG needs to show some serious development in terms of their consistency and their map pool. I think that's the main issues. Let's see if my stats page will pull up now. Let's see if the stats page will pull up. They might not. We'll see. Beautiful, beautiful. So we're gonna filter this by average damage per round with utility. EG ranks 8th. They rank 8th in utility damage per round, which is incredibly good. Obviously, considering EG is a pretty much bottom team at EPL, they are still in the top 10. In terms of flash assists, they are the 6th ranked team for flash assists. So look, I think that isn't the problem with EG. And actually, their trade percentage was much better this event, 21.2, which is something that they've been needing to improve on for quite some time. It's the stat I've been harping on as needing improvement to show better results, and it has improved. Their 4v5s are not good. Their 5v4s are really not good. They need to improve their 5v4 percentage. Their multi kills are not great, and the opening kills aren't great either. That also could use some improvement, but it's natural when you're playing up against better opposition. I think they need to be much better at their 5v4 and 4v5 percentages if they want to, and their trade percentage needs to go up a little bit as well. They need to basically be a better team than some of these other players. Even if they don't have the individual skill of some of these other teams, they need to be better as a team than these other teams, and that'll kind of balance the playing field a little bit. So it's what heroic was really good at. They're not so great at it so far this event, or they're out of the event, but they weren't great at it this event. But that's something that they were known for, is just being a better team than other people. And so that's kind of what EG needs to do if they want to uh, mostly improve the 5v4 percentage and the trade percentage. And I think the keeping up with the ADR and flash assists is what they need. Just being a little bit more clinical, being able to close out games, being able to win the rounds that are important, the economical advantage rounds where you should be mopping up the other team, and kind of trying to keep your economy strong so that you can kind of create some momentum and win multiple rounds in a row. That's what EG needs to work on. And so we'll see if they improve on that in ECL. But overall, I thought this event was an okay event from EG overall. I thought it was pretty much as expected. I don't really understand the overhype of EG CSGO that I was seeing. It was kind of ludicrous and frankly disrespectful to what some of the other players had done, as if you had just memory wiped the past year. So I was a little disappointed to see that. But overall, I'm happy for the boys. I want to give another huge shout out to Hext for being a fucking G this event. He was fantastic. It was his best LAN event ever at Tier 1. And he is still ranked pretty fucking high in these in the player rankings for the event, which is pretty fucking crazy to see considering it's an EG player, and most of the time you would just scroll all the way to the bottom to see all these EG players. In fact, Hex was notorious. I say this as if this is like, oh, he committed a sin, but I remember going through the EPL lists and some of these other lists and like Blast and whatever, and you'd look at the bottom and there was always Hex. You'd always see Hex near the bottom. He'd either be number 1 at the bottom or he'd be like the 5th to the bottom. You know what I mean? He'd be somewhere around there. So to see him be the best EG player this event was really really cool to watch. And that ace was an incredible clip. Yeah, he was ranked. He's around names like Tabson, like Jacob, Stown. He's better than Rain this event so far. Like, he's been great. He's been around the level of Twists, who was unreal this event. So credit to Hext. He's been playing out of his mind at LAN, and And I'm really happy to see that. Obviously it sucks that you got to kind of scroll down a little bit before you see the next EG player. And I believe it's Junior. No, it's George actually. George actually outperformed Junior this event. So maybe George showing some signs of improvement. I think it's clear that he's showing. It's clear that he is showing signs of improvement. The last thing that I want to talk about with um, with EG CSGO is actually in relations to Axed, because he posted an AMA, and I always love when the coaches do AMAs. It's not required of them, but I always respect them doing these AMAs, because they don't need to do them, they're not forced to do them, but they do them out of the kindness of their own heart, and so I really appreciate it. And so I asked him, how has George changed the most since having more exposure to Tier 1 European teams? And this is what he responded with. George is trying to add a lot of fine details into his game. I think that consistently competing at a tier 1 level and holding high expectations requires him to have more depth. He's always had a good mind and read for the game and feel for the game. So I know he's going to do everything necessary. And I think that's why we've seen fluctuations in George's performance, is because sometimes he's reading things really well, and other times maybe he's not getting the right reads. And it's because if he's having to add a lot of new fine details into the game and reinvent himself, yeah, you're gonna have volatility with that. But again, that's why I want to give George as much time as possible, because he's the NA Rops. Um, so so there you go. And so Blue asked him, "What's the next? What are the next steps from EG? These next couple of months or weeks or whatever." And Axe said that we play the Blast Showdown in October to qualify for the Blast Fall Final, and we will have 15 BO3s coming up for NA ECL regular season. So I'm very much looking forward to that. It's going to be really really cool. Current, as a joke, said, "Are you benching Hexed? Or are you? Or I'm sorry, he said you are you benching, like workout benching more than Hexed?" And he said yes. Shocker. Uh, how far do you think? Let's see. Let's see if there's another question about the team here. I haven't read all of these, so yep. No more actually like team related questions in that little thread. But yeah, shout out to Hex or I'm not sure. Bro, I can't speak English. Shout out to Axe for doing that. He didn't need to, and it's always appreciated from someone, from people like me who watch like almost every game and are constantly following what these teams are doing. It means a lot to me that they allow themselves to open up and answer questions. So um, always appreciate that. Um, I think that's all I have to say for this episode. I have been talking for an hour and 37 minutes at this point, roughly. Um, I just want to say again, going back to the Valorant team, I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted for what's happened. Um, I really hope to see these players playing next year wherever they go. Um, and I can only hope that they get paid the money they deserve, and they get the respect they deserve, because they deserve the world, because they won the world. um, yeah, and it just sucks. So hopefully EG will get bought out by somebody better, and we'll put in place the right people, and we can go back to what EG used to mean. Respect the crest. That's gonna be my little hashtag for the pod, just because I, I want us to go back to our roots. Um, and so hopefully that ends up happening soon. Thank you guys all for watching, for listening. I know it's been a long episode. My voice is killing me. It's bad. But I really wanted to get this episode out there, because it means these teams mean so much to me, and I felt like the players, you know, they deserve more. And look, not that I can do much of anything other than do this, but I wanted to rant. I just wanted to be just fucking mad, and I just wanted to fucking go in on EG for the shady shit and the fucked up shit they've done, and the ridiculous takes I've seen, and just kind of, hopefully maybe even my episode will allow the parents to, or anyone who's watching, to kind of, I've been listening to a bunch of different sources, from like, and I don't mean that like, oh, like I'm a journalist and I'm like actively speaking to people at EG. No, I mean like I'm watching Richard Lewis's, I'm seeing his Substack posts, I'm watching his podcasts, I'm or his not podcast, but his like YouTube videos. I'm watching, I'm looking at all the journalists and seeing what they're posting. Like I'm constantly watching this stuff. So seeing what takes they have, and what's going on in the community, and what people are saying about EG, and everything. So I feel like I can kind of take all of those things and put them into one place, um, and then bring my own perspective into it as well. So hopefully it helps. Hopefully the players get what they deserve, and hopefully good things can start happening in the future, because frankly it's just been a depressing pit of doom and gloom. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching so much. It means the world to me. I will try to get this episode out tonight, but there is a chance, tonight meaning Sunday night, but there is a chance it gets posted on Monday due to the crazy schedule that I have to deal with at the moment. So um, thanks again, and see you guys in the next episode. Respect the crest.